There is a sacred transformation that happens in solitude, an invisible alchemy that turns silence into wisdom and isolation into power. To the world, being alone often looks like weakness. They see solitude as emptiness, as something to escape from. But those who have truly walked through the depths of being alone know it's not an emptiness at all. It's a laboratory for the soul when no one stands beside you, when no hand reaches out to guide you. Life is not abandoning you, it is refining you. In the beginning, solitude feels like exile. It feels like you have been cast out from the warmth of belonging into the cold wilderness of your own thoughts. You question everything, your worth, your purpose, your path. You wonder why the world has gone silent around you. But that silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the moment before the dawn when all is still so something new can rise within you. Solitude takes away your distractions so you can finally hear yourself again. Every human being reaches a point where they must confront the truth of who they are without the noise of the crowd. The relationships, the opinions, the expectations all fall away. In that moment, you face your essence without filters. It's uncomfortable, even painful, because it reveals what has been buried beneath years of noise, the raw, unpolished you. Yet this is where the alchemy begins. You begin to melt down all that is false, every borrowed belief, every imposed identity, every role you played to please others, and what remains is pure authenticity. In solitude, you meet yourself without disguise. You meet your fears, your insecurities, your shadow. You discover how much of your life was driven by a need for approval, by the fear of rejection, by the hunger to belong. But as you sit longer in silence, something shifts. You stop fighting your solitude and start listening to it. It begins to speak, not in words, but in realizations. You realize that your worth never depended on who applauded you. You realize that your purpose isn't defined by how many people understand it. And you realize that loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of connection with your own soul. The alchemy of solitude transforms loneliness into sacred companionship with yourself. When you begin to accept your own company, you discover that you are not lacking, you are overflowing. The energy you once gave away to others returns to you in waves of creativity, insight, and peace. You learn to sit in your own silence and feel nourished by it. You begin to see that being alone doesn't mean being abandoned, it means being trusted. Life trusts you enough to stand on your own 2 feet, to forge your own way, to discover your own truth. This transformation is subtle but profound. The more you embrace solitude, the more you start to see through the illusions that govern most lives. You realize how much of the world's chaos comes from people running from themselves. They fill their days with noise, their minds with distractions, their hearts with shallow attachments, all to avoid the one truth that solitude reveals, that peace is an inside job. It cannot be given, it cannot be found outside, it can only be remembered. When you stop fearing solitude, it becomes your sanctuary. It becomes the place where you heal the fractures of your soul. You learn to speak gently to your pain, to understand your emotions without judgment, to see your wounds not as weaknesses, but as portals to deeper awareness. Solitude becomes the fire that burns away the false narratives you were taught about who you should be. Out of that fire, a new version of you emerges, simpler, clearer, stronger. You begin to make choices that align with your true nature, rather than with the world's expectations. In solitude, you also discover the rhythm of your own spirit. You learn to move at your natural pace instead of being dragged by the momentum of others. You stop chasing validation and start cultivating alignment. You begin to notice beauty in small things. A sunrise, the sound of rain, the quiet hum of your own breath. You realize that fulfillment was never about having more. It was about being more present, more conscious, more alive. The greatest gifts of solitude are invisible. They are not achievements that others can see. They are transformations that only you can feel. You develop an inner strength that no one can give or take away. You build a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. You become anchored, rooted, unshakable. People who once doubted you may not understand your calm, but that's because they haven't walked through the same silence. You carry a different kind of power now, a power that doesn't dominate, but radiates. The alchemy of solitude also reveals a deeper paradox. The more comfortable you become alone, the more deeply you can connect with others. When you no longer need people to fill your emptiness, you can meet them from fullness. You stop clinging and start sharing. You stop seeking validation and start offering understanding. Relationships become richer because they are no longer built on need but on choice. You no longer fear losing people because you've already found the one person you can never lose, yourself. Solitude is not isolation, it is integration. It gathers the scattered fragments of your being and weaves them back together. It reminds you that your path was never meant to be crowded. The great turning points of life, the moments when you awaken, when you heal, when you decide to rise, always happen in the quiet. That's where the real work is done. That's where the soul remembers its own light. The world may not understand this process. It glorifies constant connection and endless noise. But those who have been refined by solitude know the truth. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. It's the space where strength matures, where clarity is born, and where you learn to move not with fear, but with knowing. When you walk out of that solitude, you are no longer the same. You carry a light that was forged in the dark, a wisdom that only silence could teach, and a strength that comes from realizing you were never truly loned. There comes a time in life when every illusion begins to fall apart. The voices that once praised you grow quiet. The faces that once surrounded you drift away, and the applause that once kept you moving suddenly stops. What remains is you, bare, unfiltered, and exposed before the mirror of truth. That mirror is not made of glass. It is made of solitude, silence, and struggle. It reflects not what you show to the world, but what you truly are when there is no one left to impress. This is what can be called the mirror test. The moment life confronts you with your own essence, the mirror test happens when everything external is stripped away. No titles, no validation, no audience, just you and your reflection. It's not about vanity, it's about authenticity. It asks a single haunting question: who are you when no one is watching? Most people spend their lives avoiding this question. They build identities out of other people's opinions, chasing approval, applause, and acceptance. They mirror the world instead of meeting their own reflection. But sooner or later, life will pull the curtain back. The roles will dissolve. And in that sacred moment of confrontation, you will see not who you pretend to be, but who you have always been. When you stand before the mirror of truth, it doesn't flatter you. It doesn't lie to comfort your ego. It shows your fears, your contradictions, your masks, your wounds. It exposes the gap between what you say you want and what you actually do. It reflects your integrity, or the lack of it, and it doesn't care how successful you appear to the world. The mirror test reveals whether your success has a soul, or if it's just decoration over emptiness. This is not a punishment, it's an initiation. The mirror test comes to those who are ready to meet themselves honestly. It demands courage, because seeing yourself clearly means letting go of the illusions that once protected you. It means confronting the parts of you that are weak, insecure, jealous, fearful, or resentful. It means accepting that you are both light and shadow, capable of greatness and failure in the same breath. But within that honesty lies power, the kind of power that can't be broken by rejection or inflated by praise. When you pass the mirror test, you stop needing others to define your worth. You begin to live from a deeper truth. You no longer chase validation because you found validation in authenticity. The mirror becomes your teacher. It tells you what needs healing, what needs courage, and what needs surrender. Every flaw it reveals becomes an opportunity for self-mastery. Every wound it exposes becomes an invitation to grow stronger. The mirror test is not just about reflection, it's about alignment. When what you see inside finally matches what you show outside, you step into integrity. Integrity isn't perfection, it's wholeness. It's the willingness to stand as you are. No masks, no performances, no false postures. And when you live in integrity, life begins to align with you. People who resonate with your truth stay, those who don't fade. Opportunities that match your essence appear, distractions fall away. But before that alignment, there is always friction. The mirror test can be painful because it dismantles everything that isn't real. It shows you how often you compromise your soul just to be accepted, how often you dim your light to make others comfortable, how often you betray your truth for the illusion of belonging. It forces you to face your complicity in your own suffering. That realization hurts, but it also liberates, because once you see clearly, you can no longer pretend, you can no longer live half-truths and call it peace. The mirror also reflects your strength. Strength you might not have noticed while trying to fit in. It shows you the battles you've survived, the storms you've endured, the resilience that carried you through when no one believed in you. It reminds you that you are not fragile, even if you have scars. Every scar is proof that you faced something that wanted to break you and didn't succeed. The mirror reveals the survivor in you, the creator in you, the quiet warrior who kept walking long after the world stopped watching. When you learn to look into that mirror without flinching, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself, not because you are flawless, but because you are real. You stop outsourcing your confidence to external approval. You start measuring your worth not by applause, but by alignment, by how true you are to your essence. You no longer need to be seen to know you exist. You no longer need to be validated to know you matter. This is where transformation begins. The mirror test breaks your dependence on perception. You stop performing for the world and start creating from your soul. You stop seeking permission and start granting it to yourself. You realize that authenticity is not a brand or a slogan. It's the courage to live without hiding. It's the decision to be honest, even when honesty costs you comfort. The mirror test is not passed by perfection, but by presence. It's past the moment you stop running from yourself. It's past when you can look at your reflection and say, I know who you are. I see your flaws. I see your fears. I see your strength. And I choose you anyway. That choice changes everything. Because when you choose yourself, the world begins to mirror that choice back to you. The mirror doesn't lie. It simply waits for you to tell the truth. And when you finally do, you realize that every challenge, every rejection, every moment of being unseen was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. The mirror test isn't about what others see when they look at you. It's about what you see when you finally look at yourself without turning away. Every soul that seeks to rise must pass through resistance. It is the unseen force that appears the moment you decide to change, to grow, to step into something greater than you've been. Resistance shows up not as an enemy, but as a gatekeeper. It asks, how badly do you want this? It blocks the door not to keep you out, but to make sure you're ready to walk through it. Most people see resistance as punishment or rejection. But those who have learned the deeper rhythm of life understand that resistance is initiation. It's the sacred test that transforms desire into destiny. Whenever you begin a journey of transformation, resistance arrives first. It comes disguised as delay, doubt, and difficulty. The moment you set your intention to rise higher, life seems to push back. Things that once flowed easily begin to break down. People misunderstand you. Opportunities slip away, and your confidence trembles under the weight of uncertainty. It feels personal, unfair, even cruel. But in truth, resistance is not there to destroy your path. It's there to refine the traveler. In the language of the soul, resistance is friction, and friction creates fire. It burns away everything that is not essential for your next chapter. The more powerful your purpose, the greater the resistance you will face, because the process must match the promise. The path to strength is not paved with ease. It's carved through pressure you cannot evolve without, meeting the walls that test your will, and every wall that blocks your way is secretly asking one question: do you truly want what you say you want? This question separates the dreamers from the doers. Anyone can desire transformation when it's comfortable. But when the universe begins to test your resolve, when doors close, when people disappear, when progress halts, your true commitment is revealed. Resistance exposes the depth of your intention. It shows you whether your desire is rooted in ego or in essence. If it's shallow, you'll retreat. If it's real, you'll rise stronger. Resistance also serves another sacred purpose. It reveals the parts of you that still need healing. When life pushes against you, what surfaces is not failure but fear. Every obstacle mirrors the inner limits you have yet to transcend. If you meet rejection, it exposes your attachment to approval. If you face loss, it confronts your attachment to control. If you encounter failure, it tests whether you define your worth through achievement. Resistance doesn't block you from success. It introduces you to yourself. To walk through resistance, you must shift from seeing it as punishment to understanding it as preparation. Every challenge carries wisdom hidden within its weight. The struggle strengthens the muscle. The delay teaches patience. The silence builds faith. The darkness awakens vision. Nothing in your path is random. Everything is initiation. The moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You pass from victimhood to mastery. The greatest transformations occur not in moments of triumph, but in moments of trial. It's easy to believe in yourself when things go well, but it's in the seasons of resistance, when everything falls apart, that your belief becomes sacred. That's where you forge endurance. That's where you learn to create light in darkness. Resistance strips away the false confidence that depends on circumstances and replaces it with inner certainty that no circumstance can touch. When you start viewing resistance as initiation, you begin to respect it. You stop resenting the obstacles and start recognizing them as teachers. Every time you face resistance, you are being initiated into a higher version of yourself. You are being asked to let go of what no longer fits the next level of your life. Old fears, old habits, old relationships, old ways of thinking. Resistance is the signal that evolution has begun. There's a sacred law beneath this process. Nothing grows without tension. The seed must crack before it sprouts. The muscle must tear before it strengthens. The caterpillar must dissolve before it becomes a butterfly. You cannot ascend without shedding. And resistance is the dissolving, the breaking open of the old so the new can emerge. That breaking feels like chaos, but it's sacred order at work. The resistance you face is not against you. It's the universe rearranging your reality to match the person you are becoming. When you are in the midst of resistance, it's tempting to turn back, to numb yourself, to shrink your vision until it no longer threatens your comfort. But that's how most people remain stuck in cycles of mediocrity. They never let resistance initiate them. They interpret discomfort as a sign to quit instead of a sign to grow. Yet those who learn to walk through resistance discover something astonishing. On the other side of struggle, the world opens wider than they imagined. The paradox is that resistance doesn't truly end. It evolves with you. Each new level of growth brings new forms of resistance because life will never stop testing your alignment. The moment you become complacent, resistance will appear again, not as cruelty, but as a reminder that expansion is infinite. To live deeply is to meet resistance again and again, each time with more grace, more courage, more wisdom. There is a quiet strength that comes from this understanding. When resistance shows up, you no longer panic. You no longer curse the storm. You recognize it as a signal that you are entering sacred ground. You stop asking for an easier path and start praying for a stronger spirit. You understand that the energy once used to resist resistance itself can now be used to rise through it. Those who have walked through the fire of resistance carry a different kind of light. Their confidence is not loud, it's lived. Their faith is not borrowed, it's earned. They no longer fear challenge because they see challenge as ceremony, as the soul's way of proving its readiness for more. Resistance ceases to be a wall and becomes a doorway. The friction that once felt like opposition becomes the forge that shapes purpose into power. The initiation never ends, it only deepens, calling you to remember who you were before fear taught you to forget. There comes a point in every journey when waiting no longer works. You realize no one is coming to hand you permission. No mentor will appear with all the answers. No savior will arrive to carry you across the threshold. You begin to see that the very things you've been seeking, motivation, clarity, belief, peace, cannot be borrowed forever. They must be generated from within. This is the moment you stop searching outward and start awakening inward. This is the moment you become the source. To become the source means to take back the power you once gave away, to people, to circumstances, to validation, to comfort. It means realizing that the same energy you admired in others has always lived inside you, waiting to be remembered. It's not about isolation, it's about initiation. Life uses deprivation to show you your own capacity. When support fades, it's not abandonment, it's an invitation to rise as your own foundation. The human mind is conditioned to seek. It looks for light outside itself, for guidance, love, and meaning in others, and for a time that search feels necessary. We are all shaped by connection, but eventually life will create moments where the external supply runs dry. The people you leaned on become distant. The encouragement you relied on disappears. The path that once looked clear becomes fog. In those moments, most people panic. They scramble for replacements, for another source of validation. But those who understand the deeper rhythm of growth know that this emptiness is not a void to be filled. It's a space to be claimed. When everything external quiets down, you meet the truth of your own creative power. You begin to see that the same force that moves the tides, grows the trees, and fuels the stars also animates you. It was never gone. It was simply buried beneath dependency. Becoming the source is the process of remembering that connection. It's not an act of ego, it's an act of awakening. This transformation begins with energy. For much of life, we absorb the energy of our surroundings. We depend on others to motivate us, inspire us, make us feel seen. But when those energies withdraw, we have a choice to collapse or to create. To become the source means to generate energy consciously. When you stop waiting for inspiration and start embodying it, you shift from consumer to creator. You no longer ask, who will believe in me? You declare, I believe in me. You no longer wait for the world to offer opportunities. You begin building them yourself. This inner power grows quietly at first. It begins with small acts of self-leadership, choosing discipline over delay, self-trust over approval, peace over drama. You start keeping promises to yourself. You begin showing up even when no one is watching. And slowly, you notice a change. The energy that once depended on the outside now flows from the inside. You stop being drained by external chaos because you've learned to draw from a deeper source, the well of your own presence. Becoming the source also transforms your relationship with others. When you are no longer dependent on their validation, your connections shift from need to choice. You no longer approach people as a seeker, but as a giver. You bring energy instead of taking it. You uplift rather than absorb. You stop asking who will complete you because you have already met yourself in completion. This changes everything. You attract relationships that reflect your wholeness instead of your wounds. The process of becoming the source is not easy. It requires confronting the parts of you that still crave external rescue. It demands that you sit with discomfort rather than escaping it. You must face the emptiness without numbing it, the fear without running from it, because it's in that raw space, when the old sources have dried up, that your true self emerges. You begin to understand that the power you once gave to others was always borrowed strength. Now life asks you to cultivate your own. Every creator, every leader, every awakened soul has known this passage. It's the sacred threshold between dependence and sovereignty. It's where you stop being fueled by circumstance and start being fueled by consciousness. You begin to feel a subtle shift inside, a sense of calm even when chaos surrounds you, a steady faith even when outcomes are uncertain. That is what it means to become the source. It's not about control, it's about alignment. When your inner state is no longer dictated by outer conditions, you become untouchable. To become the source, you must learn to trust your own guidance. The mind often searches for signs, for confirmation, for the opinions of others, but the deeper self, the one beneath the noise, already knows. It whispers through intuition, through quiet knowing, through the pull towards something greater. When you start honoring that voice instead of silencing it with doubt, you step into authentic power. You realize that true wisdom doesn't shout. It hums from within, steady and clear. In this state, even pain becomes purposeful. Every challenge you face becomes an opportunity to practice your inner strength. You stop asking for an easier path because you understand that every difficulty is sculpting your mastery. Each time you choose to respond with clarity instead of chaos, you strengthen your connection to your own source. Each time you create peace in the midst of noise, you prove that the power is truly yours. The deeper you go, the less you need to chase. You stop competing, comparing, performing. You start radiating. You stop asking life to give you energy. You become the energy. This doesn't mean you reject help or love. It means you no longer depend on them to function. You appreciate them without clinging to them. You learn to love without losing yourself, to give without depletion, to serve without sacrifice. Becoming the source turns your life from reaction to creation. Instead of waiting for conditions to be right, you create right conditions from within. Instead of being defined by the world, you begin defining how you meet it. You no longer ask, what will they think? But what feels true to my soul? You stop chasing outcomes and start honoring alignment. The more you live from this state, the more life mirrors it back to you. You become magnetic, not because you chase energy, but because you generate it effortlessly. The secret of those who rise without help is simple. They have learned to become the source. They have learned to draw strength from the same silence that once frightened them, to turn solitude into power, and to find light within the very darkness that tried to extinguish them. There is a kind of rising that makes no noise. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or recognition. It happens in the stillness of unseen effort, in the silent hours when no one is watching, when the world has turned away and only your breath keeps rhythm with your determination. This is the quiet ascent, the slow, deliberate climb of a soul that refuses to stop, even when applause fades and validation disappears. It's not about proving anything, it's about becoming everything you were meant to be. Even when no one believes you can, the quiet ascent begins when life humbles you, when you've tasted both failure and rejection so deeply that you no longer chase validation as a form of survival. The noise of the world once mattered, the opinions, the praise, the comparison. But something changes when you are broken open by experience. You stop seeking acknowledgement and start craving alignment. You no longer wish to be seen, you wish to be real. It's in that shift from external approval to internal truth that your ascent begins. This climb is not glamorous. It's built on countless small moments of self-discipline and resilience that no one will ever witness. It's built on the mornings when you rise without motivation, on the nights you keep going despite exhaustion, on the quiet affirmations you whisper to yourself when doubt threatens to consume you. Every step upward demands strength that doesn't shout but endures. The quiet ascent is the art of moving forward in silence, of trusting your path when no one is clapping, of believing in a vision that only you can see. At first, the silence feels heavy. You question if your effort matters, if the struggle is worth it, if anyone will ever understand. The world seems indifferent, and the absence of recognition tempts you to stop. But the stillness is not absence, it is formation. It's the universe removing the noise so you can hear your own voice. In solitude, you begin to understand that greatness isn't born in the spotlight, it's cultivated in obscurity. The roots that hold a tree steady grow underground, hidden from sight, long before its branches reach the sky. The same is true for you. Your roots are growing in the unseen, preparing you for heights your current self can't yet imagine. As you climb, you start to realize that silence is not your enemy, it's your proving ground. Without the noise of validation, you must learn to validate yourself. Without constant encouragement, you must learn to become your own source of motivation. The quiet teaches you to listen to your intuition, to trust your inner compass, to recognize that the approval you once begged for was never meant to replace the strength you were supposed to cultivate within. The climb becomes less about arriving somewhere and more about remembering who you are while you rise. The quiet ascent strips you of illusions. It shows you where you relied on shortcuts, where you confused movement with progress, where you mistook attention for purpose. In the silence, every excuse, every distraction, every layer of pretense falls away. You can no longer hide behind noise. You meet the raw truth of your own potential. That truth is both humbling and empowering. It reveals how much strength you already have, how much discipline you are capable of, how deeply you can endure. The absence of applause forces you to cultivate something rarer, integrity. There is a purity in silent progress. When no one is watching, you have no reason to perform. You act out of devotion, not demand. You work because it matters, not because it's seen. You grow because your soul commands it, not because someone will reward it. This is where transformation becomes sacred. You are no longer chasing external results. You are sculpting internal mastery. You begin to fall in love with the process itself, the struggle, the stillness, the repetition, because you understand that the climb is the reward. Those who ascend quietly often confuse the world. They move differently. They don't broadcast every victory or beg for attention. Their energy speaks louder than their words. They carry a calm authority born of self-knowledge, not arrogance. The quiet ascent teaches humility because every step reminds you that your growth is not a performance, it's a prayer. You start walking with purpose rather than noise, with focus rather than urgency. You learn that elevation doesn't require exposure, it requires endurance. In the stillness of your ascent, you'll encounter moments of doubt that feel unbearable. You'll question if you're lost, if your silence means failure. But the quiet is not punishment, it's protection. It shields you from premature visibility, from the distractions that could distort your direction. Life hides you not to diminish you, but to develop you. It's preparing your foundation so that when the time comes for your light to be seen, it won't flicker under the weight of attention. The world rushes to be seen, the wise prepare to be steady. Each day you rise in silence, you add another layer of strength that no one can measure. You learn patience not as waiting but as refinement. You learn faith not as belief in outcomes but as loyalty to your path. You begin to sense that success in its truest form isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, consistent, enduring. It's not in the moment the world notices you, but in the countless moments you refuse to quit when no one did. The quiet ascent changes the way you move through the world. You stop needing to announce your progress. You stop defending your journey to those who don't understand it. You realize that true elevation doesn't need validation. It speaks through presence. The higher you rise, the quieter you become. Not because you have less to say, but because your energy says enough. You begin to embody stillness that holds power, silence that carries confidence, humility that reflects mastery. The climb continues, unseen yet unstoppable. Each breath, each choice, each small victory adds to the architecture of something magnificent. You don't rush it anymore, you trust it. You understand that what grows slowly grows strong. The quiet ascent is not about reaching the top. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand there with grace, with balance, with unshakable peace.